Spider Pig.
Does whatever a spider pig does. It'd be great if they were listening to us right now and catching the Spider Pig song.
There we go. We're broadcasting.
We're broadcasting. Awesome. Do we have people listening? Are we
Not yet.
loved?
Not yet. See, no viewers yet.
Oh well.
I haven't even known about yet. I've been like,
Cool. No peanut gallery.
you're gonna have to get used to it.
We'll be exposed to peanut gallery all the time.
Yeah.
You know this is gonna happen.
Oh, absolutely. So let's.
So instead of peanut gallery, we call kick in the sidekick type thing.
You
No?
know you love me.
There she goes again. She
Yeah.
plays the love card.
Yep. The anime freak sidekick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
could work.
Okay, so welcome, I guess, to the Zombie and Ox Comic Hour, where we will discuss all things comic, comic movies, comics, comic shops that we happen to go around and visit and torment. Actually, I would probably be tormenting more than you, but either way,
Yeah, I'll just be buying shit.
yeah, I
That's what I do.
and I torment because it's what I do. So, yeah. Like, let's see, where should we start? Should we start with reviews of recent comic shops?
How about you start with the
Well, we may want to let people know how they can get in touch with us.
Ah.
So, the Twitter is @zombieandox. You can follow us on Ustream.
As well as Facebook, Zombie and Ox.
Facebook.
Or actually, on Facebook, it is the Zombie and Ox Comic Hour.
Right.
We have the full title on there because it would let us.
And, yeah, eventually you'll be able to download these for free later on.
Through Nimbit and YouTube. Or, not YouTube.
Later.
iTunes.
Yeah.
That one.
In case you can't tell, we're really new at this. It's
Yeah.
really green. I'm usually just running consoles, not actually speaking into them.
I know, isn't it weird for you?
Slightly. I mean, the little awkward turtle should be present right now, but
And see, I'm an egomaniac that wants people to listen and now actually has an audience, which is fascinating to me. I'm not used to actually people
right.
listening to me.
The fact is, nobody listens to us.
No, no.
When we speak, it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah. Well, I think fundamentally that's because I'm the heavily tattooed guy with a mohawk and numerous piercings, and just a reject of society for most parts.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. I guess comic-wise, we've got DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, Vertigo, old school comic companies, Chaos. I love Chaos Comics. Vertigo is now defunct, but still love them. They're now part of what, Dark Horse or DC? DC, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. So pretty much all things comic we will cover. Different comics that we've picked up on our adventures. Recently, for example, I picked up a Green Lantern number 84, which is the heroin issue, released in 1971. It was
Sold at far under market value.
okay. In all fairness, I went on eBay.
Who geeked out?
I went on eBay looking for this particular comic to see how much it would run, and most of them are running in the $350 to $600 range. I found one listed by it now for $35, which leads me to believe that the person who posted it forgot to put a zero.
Probably. Or 2 zeros, even.
Yeah, so I took full advantage of their mistake, did the buy it now, purchased this $600 comic for $35, plus the, $2 shipping, and, it came in phenomenal condition, rated somewhere in the range of very fine to near mint, so, yeah, that was a great steal, and literally a steal.
Well, let's face it. This last trip to New York, we basically fleeced the city of New York for their comics.
And northern New Jersey as well.
And northern Jersey.
Yeah, we recently took a trip up to New York. It was my bachelor party. which, yes, to give you an idea of how much of nerds we are, and I am, my bachelor party was hitting all the greatest comic shops of New York.
And creepy town.
Yes, and a creepy town in Pennsylvania known as Centrala, which is the town that Silent Hill was based on. Basically, underneath the town, burning fire, molten fire, it's gonna burn for 400 years.
If you've seen Silent Hill, you know the town. It's just not in West Virginia. It's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, northern Pennsylvania. But we went up to New York. While up there, we hit numerous different comic shops. While on said road trip is where we got the idea to do this podcast. And since part of that is actually going to different comic shops and reviewing them, based off the three major ones we hit in New York, which would be, Midtown Comics, right by Grand Central, Jim Hanley's Universe, and Forbidden Planet. While there, spent decent amount of money, everybody around.
Well, we also spent 45 minutes just looking.
Yeah.
For the comic shop.
Yeah, well...
Unfortunately, we went up and it was raining cats and dogs, so all our phones were screwed up.
The first one we went to was Midtown, and Midtown, if you're familiar with New York City at all, is about a block from the Grand Hyatt where we were staying. So we walk out of the Grand Hyatt, and Ox's GPS on his phone over here decides to tell us, thank you, Apple, to take us,
No, hold on. You can't blame Apple.
Oh, I can blame Apple for anything.
It's not...
Apple Maps.
It was not Google Maps or Apple Maps.
Still an Apple product. Either way, it decided to tell us to go
Bear in mind, you're speaking into an Apple product right now.
I'm
Apple
aware of
is
this.
making this possible.
Either way, we walk up. It tells us to go straight up, 4 or 5 blocks?
Yeah.
And then hang a right and go 5 more blocks, at which point it told us to make a U-turn, go back a block, go over a block. So we end up way far away.
Well, I mean, we started out at what is it, 42nd and 7th?
Yeah.
It told us to go to 35th and 8th.
Yeah.
Which
and then
is not where this place is.
No, it is actually basically if you go out the front door of the Grand Hyatt and you make a left, you go up to the corner, make a left, and walk for about a block. It's there right across the street on the right. So we finally get there after somebody decided to pull out their phone that wasn't dry, the only guy who had an umbrella in this torrential downpour of doom. I'm soaked to the bone. Ox is soaked to the bone. Everything is soaked to the bone. And we finally get to the comic shop, which was a great comic shop. I mean, it was
fantastic.
It was up on a second level. So you go in either up a set of stairs, or in an elevator. Takes you up. Gorgeous layout, bright. Tons of graphic novels, tons of collectibles, and phenomenal selection for both current and archive comics.
That's where we got the Batman collection.
Yep. You picked up the Batman collection there. I picked up the My Little Ponies there for the missus.
Yep.
Which
got it for a steal.
I had never heard of the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic comic line until that day. And lo and behold, I picked these comics up, get them home, price them out, and they are ridiculously high. I have never seen a comic that upon purchase, even before you purchase it at the rack, it's got a value 3 to 4 times the value of what you're purchasing it at.
Yeah.
What is it? The number one right now that we ended up picking up for the missus, that's going for $100. Then there's number 2, which I think is going for $12. Number 3 is in the $8 range. Number 4 is in the $10 range. 5, 6, and 7 are all upwards of $12 to $15. And that's insane. I mean, they've already stated that number 8, which isn't even out yet, is already going to be valued in, I think, $12.
And this is for My Little Ponies. This isn't even for,
a
reprint of Detective 37. This is...
Or 38, or, Superman number 1. No, this is...
This is that crappy show that was on in the 80s. This cartoon...
Well, they started reproducing the cartoon, but... Yeah. With happy, creepy little pony things that are like Care Bears, but much eviler.
Okay. I mean, I can't remember what it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or what it is now. I've never watched it. But
I've been subjected to it by the missus a few times, so yeah.
you say this as she's in the room with us.
I'm aware of
In
this.
striking distance.
I'm aware of this.
I mean, there's a heavy.
No, I'm just thinking you're wanting sex sometime tonight.
Yes.
Broadcast number 1, and he's already being threatened with denying sex.
Woohoo! But at least I'm
I
honest.
guess we should preface that by saying you are a comic nerd that actually does have sex.
Yes. And as well as I'm a comic nerd that is getting married, has a significant other.
Who thankfully is also into comics.
Yes. Mainly towards the anime side, but still comics nonetheless. They're just Japanese specialness.
Yeah, they go from right to left rather than left to right.
Right. And tend to involve
Hey, they can
tentacles occasionally.
They are more messed up. They are
Yeah.
absolutely more messed up.
You know,
There is some weird shit that just goes on in these comics that, like, most censors would cringe if they read.
I mean, how many times do we encounter tentacles in American comics? On a percentage ratio, maybe 0.1% of the time. How many times in anime? Like 98% of the time.
Well, if you remember, if you go back to the original Ninja Turtles animated series, right? You remember Krang?
Yeah.
The brain inside of the big dude?
Yeah.
Like, that was as visually offensive as we had at the time.
Whoa. I mean, for the 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, before that, I mean, there were its moments of, like, Amazing Spider-Man number 96, 97, 98 with the Dare issues.
Yeah.
You know, 1971, Green Lantern number 84, the heroin issue where you've got Speedy shooting up heroin on the front cover.
Yeah.
I mean, we did have some offensive subject matter, but it was very few and far between.
Well, we were also at the age where we didn't realize it was offensive.
Right.
Like, going back to watch some of the movies we watched as kids.
Oh, yeah. Or you can watch Looney Tunes today, and you're like, wow, no wonder our generation turned out the way it did.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much inherent violence and gratuitous ogling of pinup girls and stuff like
And cross-dressing rabbits.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Bugs is a cross-dressing rabbit.
Oh, but back to the New York trip.
Yes.
As you can tell, and probably have already gotten the hint, we are absolutely ADD and will bounce all over the place. But New York,
Over-caffeinated.
yes, or not caffeinated enough. New York. So Midtown Comics. Here on the show, we do a rating system where out of 10 different categories, which goes everywhere from appearance of the shop, size of the shop, customer service, comic knowledge, selection for new comics, selection for old comics, parking access to get in the building, collectibles, and pricing and likelihood to come back. Every single one of those categories, Comic Shop has a potential of up to 5 points per category, giving them a total of 50 points that they could possibly earn. Break it down, gets to a rating system of 1 to 5 stars, or no to 5 stars.
Now, bear in mind, we are not experts by any means. We do not claim to be experts. We are fans and customers. So this is the only position we're taking as fans and customers.
Yes. So I'd say, Midtown, I loved it there. After everything was said and done, they got a 4.35 out of 5. So that's 4.35 bat signals out of a possible 5 bat signals.
Bat signals.
Why not?
Yeah. Anyway.
There are worse things we could do.
Yeah. So 4.35 bad signals out of 5. It's not bad. Fairly respectable, giving them a rating of great. In my opinion. They did lose some points for customer service. And that was just that the customer service guys were kind of distant and...
Well, there was only 2.
Yeah, there were only 2. And they were just kind of hard to engage. That could have just been an off day for them. But, it was still the overall great store. And then, let's see, we went to Jim Henley's.
Yeah.
Oh, loved it there.
Yeah.
I had a field day there, more so than anybody else. First problem we had there was yet again another GPS issue, because GPS had the wrong address listed for Google. They had their old location, which is right next to Empire State.
Right.
Which apparently their new location is like around the corner. I mean, it's like a block from
Yeah,
there.
It didn't take us long to get there.
No, fantastic location. It's just a straight shot, hole in the wall, all the way back, and phenomenal archives. I am an old school collector, more so than the newer comics. I do have some of the newer comics, collect those as well, but when it comes to old comics, that's where I go nuts. And yeah, I grabbed a Harley Quinn #1 there. Got the what was that? Joker's Apprentice there. I made some great grabs at that one.
That whole trip, you spent very little and definitely got more than your money's worth.
Yeah, I spent about $100 and came home with about $800 worth of comics. So, it was a great trip. I loved that store. The customer service guys were phenomenal.
I think we spent more time talking to the guys behind the counter than we did actually looking at books.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely dug through the archives for a while, but they had plenty of collectibles. They had tons of comics, tons of graphic novels, but, I still loved when I walked up and there was the guy behind the counter. There was the 2 teenagers by the door, and then there was the older guy. And I just walk up to the guy and I go, yeah, do you have a New Mutants #84, New Mutants #98, Amazing Spider-Man '96, Amazing Spider-Man number 97 and 98? At which point, the teenagers stop dead mid-sentence and are staring at me.
We should preface this by saying this happens on an almost daily basis, regardless of what you're talking about.
Right.
But the fact that you're that specific and knowledgeable about what you want can be surprising.
Right. And, the guy behind the counter immediately is just like, you know your comics. And I'm going, well, thank you. Yes. I know what I'm looking for, and I know how much it should be. And part of it is, A, I'm doing this not just to find out if they have them, but
Right.
B, I'm trying to gauge whether or not the guy behind the counter knows his comics. And these are important issues. 90 for number 84, that was the first appearance of Cable.
Yeah.
And 98 was the first appearance of Deadpool. While it wasn't a great appearance for him, it was a minor one. He just kind of shows up. He's there. Doesn't really say or do much. He's not the Deadpool that we know and love today.
But they're still important books.
Right. The Amazing Spider-Man, we mentioned them earlier. They're the Dare issues. They were the first comics to ever be released without the comic book code on them, or a seal of the Comic Book Code Authority. So, with that, I'm looking for these. I want to know if you know what these are and if you know why they're important.
Right.
And this guy definitely matched it. I was looking for some older additional comics. He didn't have any of those, but a few things he did have, absolutely made my day.
I mean, the overall impression of the shop is that you will go back.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely, Midtown, definitely likely to go back. Jim Henley's, yeah, absolutely, hands down. The other one that we hit that day was Forbidden Planet.
Yes.
And while Forbidden Planet is a collector's dream for collectibles and action figures, it's not so much a comic lover's dream.
No.
It is.
I'm much more the collectible type. Like, when I move into my new house, I want to have this 7-foot-tall Predator and Alien in each corner as soon as you walk in the door.
Right.
So, the fact that they have a remote control tumbler for essentially 60% of what it should be, it was fantastic. I mean, case upon case of even the McFarlane toys, the really offensive McFarlane toys.
Yeah. Star Trek toys, DS9 toys, Marvel action figures, DC action figures, Doctor Who action figures.
Original Star Wars action figures.
Yeah. Exorcist action figures.
I will never object to anything Exorcist.
Right. And I mean, they had a ton of graphic novels, which is, graphic novels do have a place in the world.
Yeah.
It gets all the different versions of a comic in one location. Now, there are people like me that, yes, I will hunt down every single comic from a series that I want. It may take me years, but I will do it. And
right. Your obsession with those books is like mine with guitars. There is none too expensive or too perfect to purchase.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are ones where I'm going, there is a price for that one. You have it for the wrong price.
Yeah.
But I still know what I'm looking for. And, at Forbidden Planet, they had new comics, which was great. New comics do have a place in the world, especially for new groups coming in. But, if you're looking for archives, not the best place to go. And that was...
Well, I mean, I was looking for a very specific Tintin book, and they didn't have it.
Yeah.
But it's been out of print in English for a long time, and you can only order it in French.
Right.
So I'm not going to fault them that. It's very early Tintin, very racist Tintin, but it fulfills a collection.
Right. And I mean, I did have the issue that while the salespeople on the floor were fantastic, they knew some of their stuff.
Yeah.
They were extremely helpful, extremely engaging. Their knowledge was a bit lacking. Part of what got me was that this is a story that was aired in an episode of Castle. I'm checking out, and, I mentioned to the guy, I'm like, yeah, I came in because, you guys were actually on an episode of Castle. And he goes, really? We were? And I go, yeah, that's kind of important. You should know that.
He might not have been working that day.
But it's still one of those.
You would think that the store would be going like, we were mentioned.
Right,
Yeah.
you would think it would be on the front window.
Right.
Because it's like what, ABC?
It's network, yeah.
Yeah.
Network.
I mean, and there were a couple times, like one of the guys that I was working with, what I really liked about him was that while he wasn't knowledgeable, he was willing to be taught. He was asking questions. Like, I'm the encyclopedia to him. I'm teaching this guy on the sales floor. So
Which is important.
it is.
If a guy wants to be standoffish and douchey, then why would we go back?
Exactly.
But if he's willing to admit that he doesn't know something.
Oh, yeah. Or to go, when I ask a question about a very, very particular comic in a very particular series, and he goes, okay, I don't think we have that, but why is that important?
Yeah. That right there.
Yeah.
Should make you want to go back.
And so, they ended up getting a 3.75 from me, just due to a number of different factors. Not having a selection of old comics is a big hit to me.
I'm with you. I mean, most of the stuff I want has been out of print for 20 years.
Right, and even their selection of new comics wasn't the best.
Right.
But their collectibles, you can't find a collection that massive anywhere else. I mean, that Lady Death statue,
Yeah.
it was, 3 feet tall?
It was massive.
Yeah, I mean, this is a gorgeous, fully sculpted piece.
Highly detailed.
Highly detailed of Lady Death, who, if you're not familiar, phenomenal chaos comic. Just beautifully written, beautifully drawn. One of those comics that, if you're a teenage boy, you don't want your mom to find it.
It's like heavy metal back in the mid-90s.
I think it's what heavy metal wanted to be.
Do you remember heavy metal?
Oh, I do.
I mean, the movie was horrible. I mean, that
Oh, yeah.
movie... How can I put this?
Well, we're an explicit channel, just put it.
That movie ate more shit than a German Scheiss film. We are clearly not ready.
Yeah. So, while I loved it, there were the things that did kind of get it down. So, but I mean, a 3.95 was what they scored. So 3.95 out of 5, still respectable, above average.
B plus.
Oh, and with Jim Henley's,
Yes.
they actually scored a 4.78 out of 5. So they actually scored higher than Midtown.
Yeah.
And the only fault that I had with them was that Google had the wrong address for them, which that's not even their fault,
No,
really.
you can't fault the store for that. You can
Yeah.
fault Google,
Yes.
but, it's like Microsoft always says. It'll be out when it's ready.
Yeah.
You know?
So, the next day we ended up going to Jersey.
Yes, lovely, lovely Red Bank, New Jersey. It's
where
been a long time since I've been in that county.
also a town that as we're driving through, you've got myself, the mohawked, pierced, tattooed individual, and yourself, the big
Tattooed
individual, driving through this town, and we're going, I think that us driving through this town has actually depreciated the land value of this town.
Yeah, the only place I've felt more out of my element is in my dad's neighborhood.
Yeah.
Where a 7-figure income is almost required.
It's a very, very prestigious, well-to-do area.
Yeah.
And there's no allusions to the fact. You are in a rich area. And
No, I mean, when we parked, we were right next to like a brand new AMG Mercedes.
Right.
It was ridiculously high class neighborhood.
And so we're walking through, and we get over to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, which,
I think that place has set the standard for comic shops.
it really did. In a lot of ways, it did, but part of what does get you is that is the comic shop of what every comic shop can dream to be, but most realistically cannot hit because they don't have the payroll of Kevin Smith.
Right.
It is a comic shop run by a comic fan, and run by comic fans. It was built from the ground up by a guy who loves comics, and who's been fortunate enough to have the dream and write for comics as well.
Well, the beauty of that shop, though, is not only does he have a lot of really choice back issues.
Oh, yeah.
And just great swag of comic books, but he's also got stuff from the movies. I mean, I got the Monroeville Zombies hockey jersey.
Right.
A nails lighter. I mean,
I brought home the stuffed movie for the missus. Well, originally I bought it for myself, and then I very quickly realized that it was just going to get stolen anyway, so I gave it to her.
yeah, we should have gotten two.
Yeah. But it's still...
She caresses her movie. She's very happy about her movie.
Which means you just gotta love it. It's a comic shop run by comic fans, and it is, right now we wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for Kevin Smith and Comic Book Men.
Yes. Much respect and thanks to Kevin Smith and Comic Book Men, the Smodcast. This could not happen without you guys breaking ground and
Giving us inspiration.
giving us the balls to do it. Right?
Yeah.
What it boils down to.
I mean, watching Kevin Smith stand-ups and seeing everything he's done, being as humble as he is, and he is still the guy that can go, you know what? If you want to do something and you have friends that sit there and go, all right, why not? Then let's do it. We were talking about that earlier today.
Yeah.
I want to do this. You say, why not? We're now sitting here with mics in the living room doing a podcast on comics.
There's no reason why we should.
Yeah.
If self-righteous douchebags who think they know more than they do can have their own podcasts and have tens of thousands of followers, we can just talk shit for an hour and get as many, I think.
Yeah. It's also the major factor between the two of us is that we are very brutally honest people, and we will tell you exactly what we think when we think it. And if you get hurt, well, I'm sorry, but this may not be the thing for you to listen to.
Right. I put it like this. I'm not in the business of making friends. I'm in the entertainment industry. If we happen to be friends later on, that's cool. But I've got a job to do. I have my opinions. If you don't like it, go somewhere else.
And see, I'm a salesman by trade. I've worked in retail for 13 years. So, while yes,
forced to interact with some of the most idiotic people in this country.
Well, yes, that being said, I'm also, the only difference between a con artist and me is what I do is legal.
Well, now that you're management, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not really having as much direct interaction with the customer base.
Oh, no, I do. I have more.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. My job's to be at the front of the store. Either way. Enough about work.
Back to why we're here.
Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash. They scored a 4.94 out of 5. 4.94 bat signals out of a potential 5. Their biggest fault was parking.
Right.
And that
I'm
was...
still kind of hesitant about that, though.
But see, that's, number one thing in business, and this is coming from a sales perspective, knowing business, there are two major factors, payroll and location. And yes, their location is phenomenal. Their parking is not.
But there's not much they can do about it.
Right. There, in some ways there is, there isn't. I mean, they could say, we have dedicated parking at this location. Where
we also came back on a day where everybody was out.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I still got some great finds there. I mean, that Daredevil, grabbed a Daredevil #1 of Kevin Smith's run, signed by him.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it for $7.50? No, $19.95. I get it home, I price it out, and there is no comic similar. I mean, there is no Daredevil #1 out there,
right,
done by Kevin Smith, signed by Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
The only thing I can find that compares to it on eBay is similar comics that are ranging from $150 to $300.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I basically just grabbed a $200 comic on an average median for $20.
No, you walked out of there much richer than when you walked in.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things I love about comics is that you can sit there and you can hold a comic and go, this has value. And a lot of times it's, why does this have value?
Yeah.
It comes back to the Spider-Man. It comes back to, the 98 New Mutants. It's not a #1 New Mutants. It's the 98. Why is that important? Because this character came to life. We saw the birth of Deadpool in that comic, which, I mean, Deadpool, I love the man. I mean, he's a absolute asshole. He's my hero.
He's your hero.
Why not? I mean, come on. Plus, he's got the regenerative abilities.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. I mean, in all honesty, the best thing I got coming out of the secret stash, I got a nails lighter, I got a nails poster. I've been wanting anything nails cigarettes since I first saw them in Dogma. Or maybe it was even Clerks.
Yeah.
It may not have been a nails brand specifically, but I almost wished they had a pack of nails cigarettes. Not that I would ever smoke them, but I would put them on my wall.
They would probably be the equivalent of, like, Russian rejected cigarettes and probably just kill you on the first drag.
Maybe. I mean, they are unfiltered, but I don't
Yeah.
know. So we've sung the praises
right.
of one of the best comic shops we've ever been to.
Right.
Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum.
You're talking about Big Planet. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we are located in the, greater DC metropolitan area. Virginia, Maryland, DC, all of that insanity, worst traffic in the country. We beat out LA for that. Woohoo, go us.
This is according to LA Holds as well.
Yeah. So we have a lot of comic shops in this area, and there is it's a very distinctive line between a good shop and a bad comic shop. When I went into Big Planet Comics, first off, it was horrible to try and get into. It was hidden, tucked away, and the parking lot's a nightmare. Just trying to figure out how you get in there. I ended up parking in the wrong parking lot entirely just because I couldn't figure out how to get there and had to walk over.
Right.
So all that aside, I go in. Storefront looks nice. Get in, very clean, well set up store. I'm going, okay. And it's kind of small. So I walk up to the counter and I go, hey, where are your archive comics? Where are your old comics? And the guy behind the counter goes, well, what are archives? I go, your back issues?
That's your first clue to run away.
Right. I'm going,
What are archives?
I'm going,
Do you
okay.
not know the definition of the word archive?
Going, okay, your back issues. And he kind of stares at me like a dog stares at a ceiling fan.
That sort of head tilt thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I go, back issues, the things that every comic store should have, every good comic store should have. And he goes, yeah, we don't carry those. And this is a direct quote of, yeah, we don't carry those. We're not a store meant for collectors.
Okay, so you're meant for passive comic fans?
Yeah, I'm like,
or for little kids who like the pictures.
Yeah, this store had graphic novels, and they had a few new comics, and that was about it. And I'm going, okay. Since I'm here, let me just grab some poly bags and boards, and I'll be on my way.
You mean supplies for collectors?
Yes, they sell those. Oddly enough,
It's the supplies, just not the comics.
right, and they're not welcoming to comic collectors. I left there with a very bad taste in my mouth, just feeling very rejected, in that sense of, we don't want your business.
Yeah.
So fine, you won't get it. Out of everything, they actually topped out their scale at a 1.95 out of 5.
Their best rating was a 195.
No. The best rating they got was a 4. A 4 for appearance, overall appearance of the store, and for their pricing.
That's depressing. I mean, if the best quality of your comic book shop is how good it looks,
Yeah.
get out of the business. Just stop. Just put the comics away, put them on eBay, find another thing to sell.
Right. And at least, you know what, you could get a customer service associate that doesn't look like a Bohemian Rhapsody reject and actually knows something about comics.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't that be a prerequisite for working in a
Comics shop? You would think. I mean, it's kind of one of those, if you go to work in a music shop, doesn't it help to know something about music?
Actually, that's not entirely the case.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, unfortunately, being in the industry that I'm in, I've gone into music shops and had to educate the staff. But that's a different tirade.
all right. To give you guys a breakdown of how bad it was at this shop for Big Planet Comics in Vienna, Virginia. For appearance, they scored a 4 out of 5. Size, they got a 3.75. Not a bad size.
Not a whole lot of real estate in this part of the town.
No, and they were working with what they got. They had it set up very nicely, so I will give them a little bit higher score for that. Customer service, they scored a 0. And I, being in the customer service field, I can be pretty generous when it comes to that, and I'm just going no.
Yeah.
Comic knowledge, 1.25, and that was for pretty much, I know what a comic is. It's a book with pictures and words.
That's generous.
That was being generous, yes. Selection, new. From the few that they had, they got a 2.5, which I'd say is average.
Yeah.
Selection of old, 0. Because, well, they're not a store for collectors.
No archives whatsoever.
Parking access, 2.5, because it just sucked getting in there.
But to be fair, in this part of town, parking
Yeah.
sucks.
And collectibles, 1.25. I did see a few items in there, but not too much, plus the graphic novels.
Right.
And then pricing, a 4. Their pricing seemed fair. Right on par with what you'd kind of expect.
Well, of course, they have no archives, they have no collectibles. They're not going to be able to charge an arm and a leg.
Right. Likelihood to come back, I'm just going to go with a 0.25.
That's generous.
That's
too generous.
See, that...
You cannot look me in the eye right now and say that you're going to go back.
Well, see, what it is that if I'm in that part of town and I desperately need some poly bags and boards, I might just go in...
to Michael's. Go to the craft store. Make it yourself. Don't give this place more business if they don't deserve it.
So fundamentally, total score out of a potential 50, they got a 19.5. Which,
That's an F.
yeah. The only score that I have lower than this, which my ranking system goes by the order of, let's see, 0 to 0.9 is how does this happen?
I like that.
1 to 1.9 is poor. 2 to 2.9 is average. 3 to 3.9 is good. 4 to 4.9 is great, and 5 is fantastic. So, that is my ranking system. They scored a poor, which
is generous.
yeah. Them having a pretty store was pretty much their saving grace. Now,
But as everybody says, looks aren't everything.
absolutely. Now let's see. Let's go to the next highest store in this area. Hole in the Wall.
Yeah, we drove by it earlier today.
Yeah. Hole in the Wall is this tiny, tiny little shack.
Yeah.
Um,
It's probably a late 16th, early 17th century hovel house.
Yeah.
You know?
It's right on the side of Route 7 in Falls Church. If you blink, you'll miss it. Quite literally.
Just look for the neon bat signal.
Yeah. That says we sell comics, as well as neon lights. They are an interesting little store because it is a very old building. The guy in there, knowledgeable, knows what he's talking about. And they actually just celebrated 35 years in business. They don't just carry comics; they carry used books. They buy used books, sell used books.
Right.
But they sell comics, and they have a huge, huge selection of back issues. Not much in the way of newer comics. They have a few, but their back issues are ridiculous. Now, they don't have a lot of the high desire ones. Like if you're looking for that New Mutants 98, if you're looking for those Amazing Spider-Man special issues, they're not going to have them. They've been sold out of those forever. What they have is the remainders, which there still are parts of collections that you need those remainders.
Yeah.
My Superboy collection, I'm trying to get the full collection.
Right.
So whether it's a special issue or not, I don't care. I still need that issue.
Right.
And I'm referring to the 1990s run Superboy leather jacket, sunglasses, jeans, don't call me Superboy, misuse of X-ray vision, especially around really good-looking women. Great comic for the 90s.
I think for any time period.
Yeah. When you have a guy in a comic issue flying over a beach in Hawaii using his X-ray vision on a volleyball game, yeah, let's face it, what teenage boy with those powers wouldn't do that?
I still am on a mission to go down to Brazil because I don't have X-ray vision.
Yes. So they actually scored a 3.67 out of 5. The biggest factors that hurt them are actually, let's see, their size, because it's one of those, while they are a small shop, and I don't necessarily discount them for that, it's that they have so much inventory, it is cramped. If you are claustrophobic, this is not the store for you.
Right.
It is very cramped, it is very crowded in there just from the amount of inventory they have. And collectibles, they don't have much. They got a couple shirts, they got a couple figures, some pins.
Yeah.
And then there's the issue of parking. Trying to get in there, not the easiest. You either have to turn down this weird little gravel, driveway basically, or you have to go down at the light, turn up a gravel road into their back parking lot. If you haven't been there before, it is a bit of a challenge to get in. So,
those issues aside, though, just driving by it the few times that I have, I still haven't been inside this place. There is an instant curb appeal for me.
yes.
Maybe it's just me, because I'm into that sort of antique house thing, and for some reason, those little boutique-y type places tend to have the coolest shit.
Right, and I mean, they do. They absolutely do. I do have the concern that because it is an older shop, and the heating, air conditioning in there is not the best, you are dealing with books, you are dealing with comics, that humidity does damage these products.
They are paper.
Yeah. So you kind of got to double check what you're buying, make sure that the humidity hasn't damaged it too drastically, unless you just really want that older comic that doesn't matter what it looks like.
Right.
Like, you know what? I don't care if I have a Superman #1 and it looks like shit, I still have a Superman #1.
Right. At that point, you're not worried about resale value. You're worried about, can I read this?
Yeah. There are the comics that you may buy it, and it has no other purpose in your collection aside from sentimental value.
Right.
I actually got to pick up a new copy of a Superboy #9, which for me, that was one of my first comics. In it, you've got on the cover Superboy fighting this guy called King Shark,
Right.
who is this shark man that was created when a shark king mated with his mother. Really weird backstory. It's all covered in the comic, but great comic. I loved it as a kid, and it was before I knew how to care for comics, so it got destroyed. So to find a new, a mint condition copy of this made my day. It cost me $2, but to me, the value is incredibly high.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's not a high demand comic doesn't mean there isn't some sort of intrinsic value to it.
Exactly. So I mean, great shop. Definitely stop by, swing in, if you're in the Falls Church area. Absolutely, highly recommend this place.
Absolutely.
We've also got, let's see, next step up. Let's see, EG Comics. This is the one I told you about. The one in Vienna.
Right.
Where you walk in and this place is back issues galore. Just wall-to-wall back issues.
Collector's Paradise.
Oh, absolutely. I spent about $50 in there, and I walked out with about 40 comics.
That's insane.
Yeah, because I'm buying old.
That's almost cover value.
Actually, on a lot of them, that's what they were charging me.
Wow.
Because they were sitting in old boxes, and he hadn't had them priced, so he was like, "I'll just give you cover value." Like, okay.
Part of me would feel guilty about that, but the frugal part of me would not.
Right.
At all.
And talking to the guy who runs the shop, it's a level of he loves comics. You talk to this man for a minute and a half, and he loves comics just as much as we do. Older guy, he will talk to you about comics for as long as you will stay there. And I love that about any comic shop, especially when it's a guy who knows his comics just as well as we do. They have back issues upon back issues upon back issues. I go in and I'm like, you know what? Do you have any old Chaos comics with Lady Death, Purgatory, Chastity? And he kind of stops for a minute and he goes, I might. Hold on. Comes around from the counter, reaches underneath this main table, pulls out a box, one of the comic long box, drops it on top, flips through it for a minute and goes, yeah, I got them at the back. Right here. So no, they weren't on the floor. They weren't presented. But he happily went into the back to grab them, into his back stock. I was asking about more Superboy and Steel back issues. Went into the back and grabbed a long box full of both of them. And let me dig through that for the ones that I didn't find on the floor. So it was just a great trip. Highly, highly recommend them. Getting a 4.01 out of 5 is still fantastic.
It's hard to do that. I mean,
yeah.
You convinced me to go there.
Yeah, it's let's see. The size is a bit small. But that's something that is still negotiable. Really, what kind of hurt him was the selection of new and collectibles. There just wasn't much in the way of collectibles. There were a few action figures here and there. But by all means, it is a collector's paradise. If you have the chance, go into EG Comics. There's a Google review for it that is horrible. I feel kind of bad that the Google review is there because it looks like it was written by an 8-year-old. There are misspellings. Does not speak well to the store at all. But going in that store, that review doesn't do it justice. Absolutely, by all means, make it in there. It's in Vienna, right off 123. So definitely swing in. And that's EG Comics. So 4.01 bat signals out of 5. And then let's see.
That's a pretty high standard. I mean, to this point, we've hit both the superb and the absolutely horrid. I mean,
right.
The point is, we want a shop that caters to every type of comic book fan.
Right.
The collectors, the casual readers, the nostalgic people, the collectibles collectors.
Right. A good friend of mine, her son, is like a nephew to me. He's getting to the point where he's reading. He's starting to be able to read on his own. And I told his mom the other day, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to steal him for a day. I'm going to take him to get his first comic. And she knows me. She trusts me. And so that's not an issue for her. It's a matter of, what am I going to find him? Where am I going to take him? What shop do I feel okay taking my nephew, who's 5 years old, into?
And you can find the age-appropriate comics
Yeah,
that aren't, Preacher.
exactly.
You know?
They're not Lady Death.
No.
They're not, there are the comics out there that they are meant for adults.
Yeah.
There are the comics that are meant for kids. I have a few in my collection. I actually have Looney Tunes comics.
I mean, that's sort of the nostalgic thing for us, though. I mean,
Oh, it
we
is.
grew up watching Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I've got DS9 comics, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also me being a nerd.
You also have Ghostbusters comics, which I think is just awesome.
It is, from their new run. Now, actually, the next store on our list takes a little side divergence, and that is Anime Pavilion in Falls Church. They sell manga. I will reach out to our anime manga, listeners on occasion. And since, well, they are right down the street from me, I might as well give them a review.
You may as well.
They get a 4.21 from me, which...
That's sort of... It's sort of hard for me to hear that.
Because it is anime and it's me reviewing it.
No.
Ah.
No. Because back before it all folded, I worked for Suncoast.
Okay.
So before I found out about all these comic shops,
Right.
that's where I went.
Okay.
For my movie memorabilia, the action figures.
Right.
And we had end cap upon end cap of not just DVDs, not just VHS, but books, like graphic novels.
Yeah.
Manga graphic novels.
Yeah.
This is a subculture that I do not understand. I don't pretend to understand it.
Well, see, I'm marrying into this subculture, so I feel that I should learn and should appreciate it.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
I went in there with the missus, and we, I looked around. I may not know exactly, manga like I know comics, but I can tell, A, they have new manga, they have old manga, because I'm taking my cues from the missus.
Right.
They had memorabilia upon memorabilia for swords, cosplay swords, wall scrolls, statues, I mean, everything. So that's something I have to appreciate. I mean, I may not know what these are from,
Right.
what series, but I still can recognize that they are important to the anime and manga fans.
Right.
They had an entire giant back wall section of just DVDs and Blu-rays for manga and anime.
Right.
And, there are the few series I do like, Outlaw Star being one of them, and it's not a common series.
Well, these aren't, even if you go to these big box stores
Yeah.
and look through every Blu-ray and DVD they have, these are probably things they're not going to.
Exactly. And so this place has hundreds of Blu-rays for anime and DVDs, which is a great sign.
Right.
And they actually had an entire shelving unit dedicated to Gundam models. I mean, I remember watching the Gundam series on Toonami back when Cartoon Network didn't suck.
No, let's be fair.
It was...
They don't suck.
Okay, it was a bit more awesome than it is now.
Okay, I'll go with that.
All right. So, they had all these Gundam models. I'm going, okay, that's awesome.
Right.
I still love the Gundams because it's a giant robot battling. So they actually did get a 4.21 from me. Which, hey, being fair, I'm not an anime guy, so to give them that high of a rating...
You're not an anime guy, and you are a harsh critic. But...
Pardon me as I drink from the Nectar of the Gods.
That's only because we care.
Right.
We don't... I don't want to go into a place and have a shite experience and then subject other people to that same shite experience.
Exactly. It's a level of... we're going into these shops, we're being the critics, and we're telling you, look, this is where you want to go. This is where you can take your kids. This is where you can take your friends. Don't go here, for the love of God. So, there's all the different shops. Moving up the list is actually, let's see, Laughing Ogre Comics. They're in Fairfax. Now, I have been there hundreds of times. They were my old, just fallback store, no matter what.
Your standard. You always went in there.
Yeah, I've actually shopped with them way, 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 way back early 2000s, I was living in Centerville, Virginia,
Right.
and they were located right up the street. They since moved locations into Fairfax. Got back then they were BC Comics. Then they sold out. They got purchased by Laughing Ogre, and so as far as it goes for archives, they have tons. They have tons of graphic novels. They have tons of collectibles. They have tons of new comics. I mean, there's an entire wall of just of new comics. Memorabilia, ton of it, and the staff there, knowledgeable. It's one of those, sometimes you have to go up and ask the question. They may be kind of quiet there, but it is a staff that if you go up and you ask a question, you will get them going.
Well, who is it that said the worst question ever is the one that isn't asked?
Exactly. I'm still convinced that the archive section of this store is some sort of nexus of the universe.
You think there's a time-space continuum paradigm shift?
I think there is, because I've gone in there and started digging through the archives, and I get a text message, what seems like 20 minutes later, going, where are you? I'm going, what do you mean, where am I? They're like, it's been 3 hours. And I'm going, I just got here. No, you didn't. Oh, maybe I should leave then. So, yeah, this place is phenomenal. You just get lost there. It's nice. I give them, the rating of a 4.68 out of 5. Great rating.
That's stellar.
Yeah. And that brings us actually to the only store in the area to top that rating and actually come just shy of Secret Stash.
I think we should call that Mecca from now on.
Mecca?
It is our Mecca.
Yeah, and we really do have to journey to it, too.
The only thing I think that would be better for us as enthusiasts, collectors, fanboys, whatever you want to call us, would be San Diego.
Or just opening our own shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once that happens, we still have to get all these back issues.
Oh, yeah.
A whole nother nightmare.
Yeah. So Victory Comics is this phenomenal shop in Falls Church. It's right off 29, actually, in Falls Church, and parking's great, easy access. The only issue I've ever had is trying to get out of there sometimes, but that was the first time I was trying to leave there, and I didn't quite know what I was doing. And I'm trying to cut across like 2 lanes of 29, which, if you're familiar with the area, trying to cut across 2 lanes of 29 is insane. So we do have the benefit of, with Victory Comics, they cater not only to the comic needs. They actually cover the comic card collectors. They have the tabletop gaming. This is a huge comic store. Right. I would say in square footage they are probably comparable to Forbidden Planet.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Just gigantic.
Yeah.
They actually have 2 main rooms. One of them is their tabletop gaming room, and the other one is their comic room. Sure. In the comic room, they've got their archives. They have their collectibles. They have their new comics, which just goes on forever. Same with your archives. Right. This was a comic store that I walked in, and I went, do you have a New Mutants number 98? And the guy looked at me, walked behind the counter, grabbed it off the wall, and handed it to me. And the pricing on it, I'm going, if I had $125, I would get that today. If I hadn't just spent $110 on comics in New York and the missus would kill me, right, I would get this today.
The idea behind that is you still want her to be the missus at the end of the day.
Right.
So sometimes you have to sacrifice the comics.
Right.
For the sake.
But to know that they have it, they have not just Golden Age, but Silver Age comics, right, Bronze Age, it's everything. They also do a lot of debut work for local artists.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so local comic artists that are trying to be up and coming, they've got their pieces up. There's actually some gorgeous full-size prints that I would love to pick up. And if you didn't know any better, you would think that these were straight DC Marvel production prints. Right. These are done by local artists, and they're signed. Right. So, these are things that you can just dream of having. They've got, what is it? They actually have the Batman bat signal alarm clock, which is a actual tabletop bat signal.
Why did you not buy this for me?
because
not call me and say, get your ass to this shop now.
because we're gonna go there eventually. Hopefully in the future we'll be doing more things with them. They do a lot of events as well. When they did Free Comic Day, a lot of places just did Free Comic Day. Come in, get a free comic. To them, it's an event. They bring in people, local artists. They bring in whoever they can get to do signings.
Right.
I was in there a little while after the Free Comic Day. They were like, "Oh, did you come by?" And I was like, "No, I had to work that day." And the guy goes, "Oh, well, I still have some free comics left over from that day. Here," gives me one of the free comics, which is great.
That's building your customer base.
It is. Victory Comics getting a 4.92. The only category that they were lacking on was collectibles. And that was just a sheer level of, I've been in there a while ago, and they had more. And so that rating could change very easily, just on product levels.
Right. I mean, they could be in the position where if nobody brings it in, they won't have it.
Right. So it's a matter of they could just be low on inventory. They could be switching distributors. But at the moment, it is a bit low, but still 4.25 out of 5 for collectibles. It's nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all.
And these are guys that know their comics.
Again, you said bats and an alarm clock.
Yeah. These are guys that know their comics. They know their collectibles. You can sit there and talk to them for hours about comics, and I have.
And I'm sure you will again.
Yes. So if you're in the Falls Church area, yes, absolutely hit up, Victory Comics. They are actually, if you're not even in the Falls Church, Virginia area, come to the Falls Church area and go to this shop.
It is Memorial Day weekend. I know you're in town.
Yes, all of you, everyone, go there now. Actually, what time is it? Yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night. They're probably closed.
Yeah, they're definitely closed.
Yeah, so don't go there.
No.
Yeah, go there tomorrow.
I should say, once we're all done flapping our gums here, I'm going to post the links to all these shops on our Twitter page, on our Facebook page, and
with the ratings as well that we gave to each one.
Yeah.
All these different factors come into play, and there are a lot of shops that we are going to be hitting. Part of this program is that we're going to be taking road trips. Might go up to Baltimore, Philadelphia, Richmond.
Definitely New York again.
Yeah, New York again. Let's see. What other major cities can we? Chicago, Minneapolis. If we get the chance to go to Dark Horse, the home of Dark Horse Comics, that would be fantastic.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're listening to this at any time, and you either own a comic shop or know of a place that you think is fantastic, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, or email. Let us know where these places are so we can come take a look and, get your shop mentioned in our podcast. And maybe sometime down the line we can do an in-store, do interviews, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. That's one thing is, we're doing this not just for the comic shops. No shop is going to say, hey, will you give us a good review? No, it doesn't work that way. No shop, any shop could say, hey, come and, if you come in and you do this with us, we're going to give you free comics. Yeah, that'd be great, but I'm still going to give you an honest review at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If your shop sucks, I'm still going to say your shop sucks. We want to take this as big and far as we can. If for any reason I'm traveling for work or you're traveling for work and you stop into a store in, St. Louis or Nashville or wherever you may be, and you go, dude, I was in this shop. It was fantastic. We've got our rating system. We know how it works. And, even though I've been to some of these shops and Ox, you haven't, I can still speak to them, and vice versa.
Absolutely. We know we have a common standard for each of these stores.
Right.
Which is
important. Yeah. It's, we're just trying to cover anything we can. And I was actually talking to one of the comic guys today about the Arkham City Origins game.
Right.
Which,
cannot wait.
And I'm in the same boat. And, he expressed the issue that in the trailer video, that Batman is looking kind of bulky. And that to him, if it's early Batman and it's origin Batman, why is the suit so big and bulky? Wouldn't that be later technology? I'm going, no, I don't think so. Because I'm thinking that, A, if it's us making a suit, if I'm going to be making a Batman suit, I'm not going to have any idea how this technology is supposed to work. It's trial and error.
You also want padding.
Right. I mean, in Dark Knight, you had the guys that were wearing hockey pads.
But going back even further, watching the special features of Batman Begins, Chris Nolan said to his star, his Bruce Wayne,
Right.
get as big as you can. Because this was just after Machinist.
Right.
And Christian Bale had gotten so thin.
Oh, yeah.
Emaciated. Like, as thin as you, if not thinner.
Yeah, I am a human skeleton, by the way. If that's part of the nickname of zombie, it also has to do with how I am when I wake up in the morning.
But Christian Bale was so small.
Yeah.
And then had to have put on close to 100 pounds of just muscle
Mass. Yeah.
And he was actually told he needed to lose weight again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could play into it.
Oh, yeah. It's also, I mean, he's probably excess padding. This is probably before he perfected the Kevlar, the plated technology, all the different things that made Batman's suit the way it is in, like, Arkham City, Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be bulkier. And you actually see it in the fight sequence. It's pretty rough. You can tell that he doesn't have the fluidity that he should have.
The difference, though, is that's not gameplay.
Right.
That's also a live-action trailer.
Right. And, I mean, but at the same time, though, they're already planning on making him for a live-action trailer being a bit rougher around the edges in combat.
Right.
I mean, granted, yes, he is fighting Deadshot, which, you're just going to get your ass beat anyway. It's Deadshot. So, it's still...
I'm not even going to comment on that. I was so frustrated with that part of Arkham City, dealing with that son of a bitch. It's just fucking annoying.
I loved it.
It really was.
I love that sequence. I just wish I could have gotten like a fight scene with him. I mean, it's Deadshot. It's the DC version of Deadpool.
Yeah.
So that, and I mean, you got a guy who, as far as, okay, Wade Wilson for Marvel, which is your Deadpool.
Yeah.
He's got a jacked up history. I mean, this is a guy who has the ability to regenerate, and it didn't kick in until later in life. And the downside to that mutagenic property was that he developed cancer.
Right.
Skin cancer. So the mutagenic properties didn't just affect him, it affected his cancer. It gave his cancer the ability to fight him. And it gave him the ability of not dying from the painful cancer.
Right.
So, yeah, he's got a jacked up history. But on the flip side, DC is equivalent. That man, oh my God, with just the relationship issues, how many children, I think it's his son was killed, another child of his, tried to kill him. He just has not had it emotionally. He is about as scarred as Wade Wilson is physically.
Let's be fair. The Arkham universe, the Gotham universe,
Yeah.
is just psychosis upon psychosis upon psychosis, and all of them butting heads.
Which is why I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it.
so.
Out of the 3 characters in comics that I do cosplay as,
True. Fair. Fair point.
Scarecrow, Riddler, and Mad Hatter, the 3 villains that have been able to take on Batman and destroy him more so than Bane could physically. They take him on where he is weakest, take him on psychologically, and just tear him apart.
Okay, quick sidebar. We've heard a specific name pronounced 2 different ways.
Okay.
Bruce's mentor in the League of Shadows.
Okay.
What do you call him?
Ra's al Ghul.
Okay, thank you.
What's the other way?
Ra's al Ghul.
No, Ra's.
That's from the game.
Right. That tends to be more in-game when it's referred to as Ra's.
Yeah.
It's more from the accent.
Right.
And so it's a mimicking of the accent itself.
Right.
But I mean, great game. Still love them all. No. Yeah, the only issue I actually had with Arkham City, since we're discussing that game specifically, was there was one Riddler trophy, or one Riddler puzzle that was inaccurate.
Yeah.
And I mean, for a comic-related game as expansive as Arkham City, to have one inaccuracy, and that was it, was incredible to me. And that was that you have to find a poster with the Flying Graysons.
Yep.
And the name of the circus is wrong.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Because in the game, I'm trying to remember if they call it Gotham Circus or Metropolis Circus. But in actuality, the Flying Graysons were from Haley Circus.
Right.
Now, that is a detail that I can't really fault the developers for. Because,
Nor can you really get on them too hard.
right, because it was mentioned in one cell of one comic in the 60s.
And the origin story has been told so many different ways.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's insane. But, yeah. Let's see, what else do we got?
Other than having people comment, please subscribe to the Ustream channel, to our news feed on Twitter, on Facebook. Musicians, any bands, if you want your music played on this show, email me an MP3 or an MP4.
Yep.
And give me all the information that you would want included, album title, label, anything. Let me know. Hit us up. zombieandox@gmail.com. Send me your submissions. I'll be happy to play whatever you guys have. This is a community-based idea. There's no point in excluding anyone.
Right. If there's any subjects that you guys want to know about, if you've got a question that comes to comics and you're going, look, I've always wondered this, like, what is the backstory to Bane? Not everybody knows that.
Right.
Hit us up with these questions. We'll be happy to answer. If you want to know something about us, like what is, who are our favorite characters and why? Things of that nature. So.
Also, one of the perks of Ustream is that there is a live chat room.
Yeah.
So if you're watching or listening at this point, please feel free. Post a comment, ask a question, tell us off, cuss us out. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do whatever you got to do.
We'll take it.
Love to hear from everybody.
So, all right. I guess that's it for today then.
Yeah, and we'll figure out when we're doing this, try to make it a regular thing. Yes, any and all feedback would be greatly appreciated. So hit us up, zombieandox@gmail.com, zombieandox on Twitter.
The Zombie and Ox Comic Hour on Facebook.
Get in touch with us. Remember, we are doing this for you and for our own edification. But we are not sponsored by anyone. This hour is basically brought to you by caffeine.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
No, some Mountain Dew. Yep.
All right, folks. Talk to you next time.
Later. Not bad. For an hour? Yeah.
I don't know.